And I don't know why Canada is getting the brunt of this.
Don't you think,
that's
though,
a good question.
that this is about politics more than anything else, though, where Trudeau is so far to the left, particularly from a country that has, such, as you mentioned, such huge energy resources? You know, we've heard nothing but like sort of leftist climate policies out of Trudeau. I think that's part of why he's got a, President Trump sort of has taken aim at him a little bit, because it's a disparity between just on the politics.
For weeks now, I have been asking myself, why? What is the motive? None of this makes any sense to me. And suddenly something clicked. And boy, oh boy, do I ever have a theory for you about Mark Carney and the Liberal leadership race, and a theory as well as to Justin Trudeau and even his whole stance on all of this stuff and some of the dirty details and dirty money that may be playing a role in them essentially rigging our election for Mark Carney to be crowned victor of the games. We are going to be chatting a little bit about Ruby Dhalla. She posted something last night that just really touched my soul. I want to share that with you. Going to be touching on a few more things out of Pierre Poilievre's camp, as well as the psychotic Liberals camp. Wow, that is a trip. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment your thoughts down below. And let's kick this off first with Ruby Dhalla. So as we know, she was removed from the Liberal leadership race. First, they were saying it's foreign interference, and then they were saying, oh, there's something weird about your donors, which I just think is funny because we'll compare some of Mark Carney's donors to that one just afterwards. But here's what Ruby Dhalla posted last night that just really touched my soul. She is the most conservative Liberal, aka normal Liberal, really, by Canadian politics standards, that's been in the party for a very, very long time.
Let's do this. Thank you. 3 minutes before I'm supposed to be joining this call, I've just received this message from one of the most prominent reporters in our country. They are going to disqualify you for campaign irregularities and not for foreign influence.
The rest of that message, by the way, says obviously they don't want you on the stage firing at Carney. And yeah, I think all of us can say that that's 100% accurate. You've seen from the other people running in the Liberal leadership race, and mind you, they're all people who are within cabinet, right? So for them to take massive shots at Mark Carney, should he be crowned, which we know he's going to be, mark my words, that would be disastrous for them. That could lead them to being removed. That could lead them to being forced to resign. And so obviously Ruby Dhalla, out of any of the people who are running right now, she is the one with the least amount to lose. And she's the only one that has been calling out Mark Carney and how corrupt and weird his allowance in this campaign really is. And while Ruby didn't give details as to who it was that sent her this message, she said that it was somebody who was a very prominent media personality in the country. And all of those people who are very prominent figures in the country are all people, for the most part, who are very much left-leaning. So they claim on air at the very least. And even that message, myself, I've had so many people who have asked me, because I left media to do YouTube full time. I was sick and tired of lying. I was sick and tired of self-censoring all the time and lying by omission and not being able to get into the nitty-gritty details that we all talked about behind the scenes. And so many people have asked me, how many people are actually conservative in media? Oh, well, were you really vilified by your peers based on your views? And my answer to all of them is no. Honestly, the vast majority of people working behind the scenes in media, across radio and television, across this country, those people who you see on TV, I have personally had conversations about the same type of stuff that we talk about on this channel with them, and they're in complete agreement, but they can't say it because if they do, they will lose their job. They will lose their show. That is unfortunately the dark underbelly of the industry. And so while this certainly could have been from somebody prominent who is conservative of leaning, I don't really know many of those that exist, outward facing at least, when it comes to Canadian media. That text right there just goes to show you again how much the people who are omitting the truth and who are pushing these narratives are the same people who think exactly like you and I do. They just don't want to lose their job for saying it, which is why they would send in a private text message to her saying, oh, they don't want you on the stage firing at Carney, because we all know that that's exactly what this is about, but nobody's going to talk about it publicly. And that's what sucks the most about mainstream media and the fact that the vast majority of people, especially older people, get their news from those sources. And they get their news from people who don't even believe in the narratives that they're speaking. They just have to say them. And it's one of those things that just always makes me cringe and also laugh. You know, the amount of people who have commented on my departure from the industry who are radical leftists who think that the reason why is because of my views. And it's like, honey, if you only knew what I knew, you would feel so deceived by so many of these people.
The past 48 hours have been very difficult. Please do not disqualify me. It will not send the right message for our party to immigrants and for young people and women in our country. I know that my brother's with me because it's his angel number is 333. Yeah. They had a meeting with me at 1:30. And I said, regardless of what you think of me, just think about the other cultural communities in our country and women and young people. You're going to send the wrong message. They only want to talk about diversity. They only want to talk about representation of women. But when it comes down to it, they want to silence you and they want to disqualify you. They did not want me to go on to that debate stage in Montreal. They certainly did not want me on that ballot. And the Liberal Party of Canada wanted to complete the coronation of Mark Carney.
Man, like, we can all just agree that this is a coup, right? That's exactly what this is. It is a liberal elitist coup that is going on with this Liberal leadership race. And, you know, one thing that really stood out was the fact that when they disqualified Ruby, they cited the reasoning behind it as to some discrepancies within her donations and some people who were donating to her campaign. And I came across this on X, and obviously I had to do a little bit of deep diving into it, but it showed that Charles and Stephen Bronfman contributed to Mark Carney's campaign. Now, to be clear, the highest amount that an individual donor is allowed to contribute is $1,750. Those are the rules. So they didn't break any rules by these, but in case you're unfamiliar with who the Bronfmans are, they have long donated to liberal political campaigns, for the record. But that is an incredibly wealthy, global, elitist family, one of which I will probably get in trouble for discussing in depth on YouTube. So go ahead and do your own research into that family. But to me, to have a family like that donating to your campaign just completely discredits all of Mark Carney's alleged "I'm an outsider" things that he's doing. He literally has the elitist of elite people donating to his campaign to ensure that he is able to win inside of this Liberal leadership race. So obviously he has immensely benefited from the exact same insiders that Justin Trudeau benefited from, and they are just changing the crown over from Trudeau onto Mark Carney and supporting him. So that entire idea of Carney being an outsider is just ridiculous. And if you consider some of the Bronfmans' past issues and controversies regarding tax havens for the super elite, realistically, it would appear as though the old guard is going to back Mark Carney because they expect him to continue to protect their interests, much like Justin Trudeau already has. That's neoliberalism for you. Moving on to the Donald Trump tariff situation. Earlier today, Donald Trump said this.
We're on time with the tariffs, and it seems like that's moving along very rapidly. We've been mistreated very badly by many countries, not just Canada and Mexico. We've been taken advantage of. We were led by, in some cases, fools, because anybody that would sign documents like they signed, where they were able to take advantage of the American people, like has happened over the last long period of time, except for a little 4-year period that took place 4 years ago. But anybody that would agree to allow this to happen to our country should be ashamed of themselves. No, the tariffs are going forward on time, on schedule. All we want is reciprocal. We want reciprocity. We want to have the same. So if somebody charges us, we charge them. It's very simple.
I will say, as much as I dislike this whole tariff situation, it does make me kind of laugh a little bit internally, slightly, because like the Trudeau government, as soon as Trump announced this, their immediate play was, oh, we're going to have reciprocal tariffs on you. And then Donald Trump was like, you know what? I like that idea. We're going to also do reciprocal tariffs on all of you guys, actually, because it is true. Canada does have very high percentages of tariffs from Canadian goods that go into the American market. So this is going to be a disaster, something that the Bank of Canada also highlighted a few days ago.
Unlike the pandemic, if tariffs persist, there will be no economic bounce back. Long-lasting tariffs mean lower potential output because our economy works less efficiently.
And what can you thank for that? Honestly, in Canada, for the most part, it does have to do with environmental policies, which have pushed investment out of this country, ridiculous regulation and zoning bylaws, some provincial, some federal, whatever, that all just really make Canada a really awful place for an economy to thrive. And it has prioritized virtue signaling and wokeism over actual benefit to your people. Again, neoliberalism. I just watched a documentary on that, which is probably why it's so fresh in my mind. But to that effect, you've had a lot of people who have been criticizing the Conservative Party for this whole Canada's broken rhetoric. Mark Holland was just talking about this earlier today. And oh gosh, bear with me here. You gotta watch what he had to say.
We need a Me Too moment for souls, right? Like, we're all, I don't care who you are, you're walking through your day, all of us are holding on to way more than anybody understands. Everybody's holding up all kinds of people and just trying to keep their stuff together in this world. You have no business being cruel to anybody. And I think, look, you could be 10 years old and have the internet and tell me what's wrong with the world, right? Why are we rewarding anybody for just saying what's broken in the world? I think you evaluate people based on what solutions they're offering, right? And if you're spending 80% of your time talking garbage and being negative, then you're the problem, right? You're the problem.
What an interesting way to continue to villainize the people who are telling you that something is very, very wrong. And here's the thing. I've had this conversation with a lot of people, especially after the Donald Trump tariff situation. But people have said to me, how on earth can you say Canada's broken? Canada is not broken. And I say, yes, it is. And that's exactly why it needs to be Canada first. If Canada was not broken, we wouldn't have any of these issues. We would be much similar to the US, where the threat of tariffs from another nation would just be, not a big deal because our economy is going to be okay. If Canada wasn't broken, these conversations would not be happening. And it's just laughable to me to hear the Liberal Party now saying, oh, see, you got to go after the people who are saying that it's broken and it's bad. Those are the bad guys. No, honey, we got to go after you. We got to go after you for putting us in this situation. And this clip here is from Pierre Poilievre. It's a couple days old now, but definitely worth a rewatch if you've already seen it, and worth a watch if you haven't seen it before.
For months, you've said that Canada is broken. Now, in the wake of the tariff threats, of the threat of becoming the 51st state, do you still think that Canada is broken?
I think the Liberals have broken everything. They broke our housing market by doubling housing costs. They broke in the household budgets by raising carbon taxes and income taxes, with twice as many people lined up at food banks as there were before the Trudeau Carney Liberals. They've broken our criminal justice system with catch and release that has allowed criminals to rampage through our streets, gun crime having doubled. They've broken families with the fentanyl crisis that they unleashed by legalizing hard drugs and leaving our borders open. We have more people dead of fentanyl after a decade of the Liberals than died fighting for Canada in the Second World War. So they broke a lot of things, and it is patriotic to point out what is broken so that you can fix it. I mean, Liberals they're trying to gaslight Canadians into saying, if you point out any of the problems that they caused after 10 years in power, you're unpatriotic. I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. Patriotism is about having an honest conversation about the enormous damage the Liberals did to this country. And by the way, I won't take any lessons on patriotism from Mark Carney, who took jobs and money out of Canada to put them in the States, in China, and in the Middle East. I won't take any lessons from the Liberals on patriotism after they have been lowering our flag and putting down our history for the last 10 years. Conservatives will put Canada first, and that means fixing what Liberals broke.
Also, let's not forget that it is the role of a leader of opposition to criticize the government and call out their shortcomings should the Conservatives win a majority, which who knows if that's going to happen given the media spin of all of this insanity as of late. That will be exactly what the next opposition leader will be doing as well. And I'm willing to bet, because they won't be Conservative, you probably won't be hearing them criticized in the media about doing their job as much as you have with the Conservative leader, Pierre Poilievre.
But like when you look at the two neighbors that we're giving a hard time, I don't think we're being hard enough on Mexico, and I don't know why Canada is getting the brunt of this.
Don't you think,
that's
though,
that's a good question.
that this is about politics more than anything else, though, where Trudeau is so far to the left, particularly from a country that has, such, as you mentioned, such huge energy resources? You know, we've heard nothing but like sort of leftist climate policies out of Trudeau. I think that's part of why he's got a, President Trump sort of has taken aim at him a little bit, because it's a disparity between on the politics.
Yeah, and to that point, Canada's GDP per capita, when you adjust for inflation since Trudeau took over, is down over 20%. I mean, that is a death knell for a nation. He has destroyed the quality of life for the average Canadian. Housing is unaffordable, groceries unaffordable. It has been absolutely devastating since he took over. Where in the U.S., like GDP per capita, gone through multiple different administrations with our own inflation problems, is up about the exact same amount. So things are bad there, and maybe Trump's trying to help him out by exposing what an idiot Trudeau is. But again, I'm a bit
Trudeau's
perplexed.
also on his way out.
Yes.
I mean, to be clear, he has lost political favor in his nation because, again, of these. I mean, they've had that immigrant flood. Think about, when they were welcoming immigrants from Afghanistan, and so the Canadians themselves, the Canadian people, I believe, are saying we need to move more to the right. I think the same cultural issues that have hit the United States, Emily, have hit Canada.
Okay, are you ready for my theory? This might make you think a little bit. I'm curious too as to your thoughts or additions to this, or if you think I'm way out of nowhere when it comes to this idea that's been brewing in my head. Let me know in the comments down below. But it's been very clear that from day one, Mark Carney was going to be Justin Trudeau's successor. They've done everything in their power to ensure it is nothing but good publicity about Mark Carney. They're not questioning any of the stuff that they should be questioning. They're omitting all of the details that they possibly can in order to successfully psyop the nation into voting for Mark Carney. Now, none of this has made any sense to me, because Mark Carney has been very lucrative in his business, and he has made billions, trillions of dollars with his companies and all of his investments and his think tanks that he's a part of. But then this really clicked. Because Justin Trudeau, what happens to a prime minister after they cease being prime minister? Well, more often than not, they end up becoming advisors. They end up becoming, the chairs of boards and blah, blah, blah. The same type of stuff that Mark Carney has been doing for the last 20 plus years of his career. And his has always been focused on the green agenda, which is hilarious because he has investments in massive coal farms and in pipelines and all of that. But no, we can't talk about that stuff. But I think that Justin Trudeau very likely, when he resigns, will move to the exact same route. He will probably move to the exact same stuff that Mark Carney has been doing for the last 20 years, and that this was all incredibly deliberate. And I think that Mark Carney, it would be highly advantageous of him to take on the role of prime ministership, even if for a short period of time. Let's say that he doesn't win in the election. I have a hard time believing that he's going to stay on for 4 years as leader of the opposition. Maybe he could, I don't know. But I think that he is going to use his prime ministership to gain intel on businesses in the country and outside of the country as well, so that he can villainize them and poach them to profit off of them with all of his green energy investments and partnerships that he has once he is done getting that information. Because presumably, if Justin Trudeau has any integrity whatsoever, which is questionable at times, he wouldn't have shared that information with Mark Carney. And perhaps those conversations could have been, oh, well, hey, you may as well just be prime minister and you'll have access to the same knowledge that I have. Like, that may have actually been a line that Justin Trudeau would not have crossed with Mark Carney. But now there's this opportunity for Carney to get in, and he can then have all of that information and all of these people that his investments and his think tanks and his businesses can go and poach, so that he can profit off of them once he's done being prime minister of the country, which will likely be a very short period of time from now. I personally believe that that is going to be the route that Justin Trudeau is going to take once he is formally removed from the position. And I personally believe that Mark Carney is solely taking on all of this so that he can gain that information and use it to create more wealth for himself going forward. This has nothing to do with Canada or his ideas that he can be the one to save us. I don't believe that that's not even a part of the equation. That is just a part of the game that he is playing in order to get these votes so that he can get that information and he can become even more wealthy. That's what I think. I think it is very much colluded between him and Justin Trudeau on how to go about this so that they have access to everything that they could possibly need for their empire to grow that much bigger. Let me know what you think about that. That's my theory. It's been brewing in my brain for at least a month now, and I finally put some of the details and pieces together, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Again, it's just a theory, but what do you think about that? Do you think it holds any weight whatsoever? Let me know in the comments down below. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and give me a follow on other social media platforms as well. I'm going to do my best to have a video for you tomorrow. It's just been so crazy, the amount of things that have gone on with politics in the last couple of days, and I have been so unbelievably sick. I initially thought that it was pneumonia. Turns out it's just COVID. Great, again. So thank you so much for bearing with me. And please know, genuinely, it has pained my heart to not be able to talk to you because there is so much that I want your opinion on. And it has been very hard to not be in front of this camera the last couple of days, but I think I'm starting to kind of recover. Hopefully tomorrow is even better than today. Today was hard, I'm not gonna lie, but thank you so much for watching up until this point. I gotta stop hanging out with so many bats.